Welcome to B2B Brand 180 Strategy Podcast. Hi, I'm Linda Fanaras, host of B2B Brand 180 and CEO of Millennium Agency. If you want to transform your B2B marketing into a powerhouse brand, then you may want to listen in. And if you like what you heard today, just click like, share, or subscribe. So today we're going to talk to Harry Spaight. He's a renowned sales consultant, author of Selling with Dignity, and keynote speaker. And drawing on his mission background and extensive experience in competitive sales, he offers valuable insights to improve sales performance and drive substantial revenue growth. Harry proves that selling can be an act of service to others that will yield great results. So let's get started. Welcome, Harry. Thanks for coming to the B2B Brand 180 podcast today.
Linda, it's an honor to be here, and I appreciate your attitude about podcasting, and I'm sure we're going to have some fun today. So the short version of me is that I used to did mission work in places like Russia and Berlin, Germany, and a couple of years in the Dominican Republic. I got into sales as a former missionary. Typically not a lot of companies hiring that resume. So I pleaded and begged, apparently, and someone felt sorry for me. But what ended up happening is after I was failing mightily in a sales bullpen for a number of months, I eventually started to get it that I could sell coming from a place of service. That would be my differentiator. And things started to click. And I built a nice career, helped a lot of salespeople over the years because I eventually rose to becoming a VP of sales for a Fortune 500 company. Everything was based on coming from a place of service. And I'm just here to help others to feel that selling can be clean and happy without feeling gross and icky, as some people describe it.
Yeah,
How does that?
that's perfect. That's a great way to put it because we will remember the good old days when you were buying a car or buying some sort of recreational vehicle and you get that hard sales pitch and you just walked away rolling your eyes. So things have changed. People have gotten smarter and they're really not tolerating that as much as they used to. So we'll get started. We'll talk about some different strategies that companies can take advantage of or individuals who are interested in selling better and building their confidence around selling with dignity. So let's talk about your book a little bit because you had written a book called Selling with Dignity. And I just want to ask you, like, what actually inspired you to write that book?
During the whole COVID time period where some of us had a little more time to think and reflect on our lives and so forth, I realized that 10 years earlier, I had said something to a friend of mine that I should write a book someday and combine my experience and show people how to sell coming from a place of service. Well, that came back to me during COVID and I didn't waste any time. I immediately started writing. The whole goal was, look, I've helped people make a lot of money in growing their business over the years, but I really want to help the small business owners, the people who are creatives, the people who are on a mission, that have a purpose, that want to make the world a better place. I can help those people, I thought. And so that's why I wrote the book. It's really not for the people that already, the super strong salespeople, the strong closers. It's for people who want to be better and just don't consider themselves, quote unquote, a salesperson. So that's the real purpose behind it.
So that's how it's a little bit different than some of the other sales books. I remember back in the old days, I had read that. You probably have too, the Zig Ziglar books on how to sell and how to motivate people and so on and so forth. So this is a nice strategy because I also align with what you're saying here today. So what would you say some of the challenges our entrepreneurs and sales people actually face during the selling process?
Yeah, the number one thing is that people disappear on them. I mean, it happens all the time where people show interest and then they disappear. And I asked someone recently in sales who was telling me this problem, and I said, do your friends disappear on you? He says, no. And I said, so you can't think of any of your friends that disappear on you? He says, no, none. I said, okay, so what's the difference? And he immediately connected the dots and he says, I guess my prospects are not viewing me as a friend. So from that point on, we talked about how can you provide value? If people know that you're out to sell something, they're not looking to buy something unless they have a need. So if you're not providing value for them or for their business, then they know you're there. And when they need you, they might remember. but you stand a much better chance if you continually provide value for them, staying in touch, sharing something of insight for their business, maybe something that they like personally. Maybe they're a Red Sox fan. I don't know. I used to come from Massachusetts.
Hmm.
You can just talk about, hey, the Sox are having a wonderful season, or not so much. Got tickets to the game, or did you pick up something? And it's just little small talk. And that way, people don't expect that every time you talk to them, it's about you.
Right.
Once they figure it out, it's always about you, then that's when they typically disappear. What's your
Yeah.
thought on that?
No, I agree with that. Or just the fact that you're actually taking an interest in them as an individual versus them as a an employee that works for a company. Because to your point, I mean, people have lives and people are people, and we all face a lot of the same things. So you don't really want to be dealing with a salesperson that every time you hear from them or see them, they're just going to ask you, "Hey, did you close that deal?" Or, "Hey, are you going to buy this from me?" Because really, frankly, that's a little, just discouraging. And it doesn't really make for a good relationship. It makes for a little bit of a resentful relationship, I think.
Exactly.
So how do you, you try to nudge people along the process because maybe somebody might have a little bit of interest. Maybe they don't even have any interest. And you spoke a little bit about how you actually provide value. Maybe it's an article, maybe it's something that you saw and that you want to share with them. Is that something that you start right from the beginning? Do you start it during a certain part of the sales process? How do you identify when you would start that? And then maybe when you would just give up and end that.
I think right from the beginning is when you want to start showing value. So asking people about their business, and the old question is, what's keeping you up at night? Maybe that's stale, but you might say something like, what has your focus these days? Besides buying stuff for me, what's really on your mind? And when they tell you, that's when you want to make a quick note and then see if you could be a resource. And when they say, this is where a lot of people will lose it, right? Because
Mhm.
an example is, you might say, well, how's business? And someone might say, well, it's summer, so it's a little slow. And well, what does that mean? What does that mean to the business owner that says it's a little slow? Does that mean they're now a little bit stressed? Are they concerned about payroll? Are they concerned about the business eventually stopping? What's going through their mind? We don't know. So when we say countless things like, yeah, it's summer. So the reason I'm here is, it just shows that we're not empathetic, that we're not
Mhm.
really listening, that we don't care, and it's all about us.
Mhm.
So being empathetic, we can then ask, yeah, I get it. Business is slow at times in the summer. When you think of this, what's top of mind for you? What comes up for you when you're thinking that business is slow in the summer? Did you experience this last summer?
Right.
And then you're opening up the conversation. And then when they give you something, you can just ask, what was that like? Or what do you think the reason is it's different? Or how does that impact you? Or tell me more. And we're just putting out this where we're extending the conversation. And the longer we can talk about them, the more they build trust that we're not there for ourselves. So once
Right.
we start faking the listening, which is what some salespeople do,
Mhm.
because they come across with these superficial questions,
Mhm.
and then, they're not really listening, they're nodding, and
Right.
then they go right to themselves.
Right.
And people pick up on that stuff because we're all smart enough to pick up when someone is fake listening to us. And we say things like, that person's a phony. And that's not what you want to be. You want to be sincere and genuine and put yourself in their shoes and say, if I was struggling to make payroll or I was worried about business coming in months, what would I be thinking?
Mhm.
And when we start thinking like that, we can say, wow, that must be tough, right?
Right.
Where we're showing some empathy.
Yeah, and that's a great point because I think a lot of times that is what happens is that you get somebody that doesn't and I always say you got to listen more and talk less because the more you listen, the more you learn. And it's really simple. It's a very simple recipe for success as far as I'm concerned. Because if you are able to take the time and listen to an individual and hear what they're saying and maybe like read between the lines from time to time, you can come back to them with something that'll actually bring value to them versus just starting up with your own conversation that will benefit you. So I totally agree with that. And I think that's an important part of business just in general is to just listen more and talk less. And it's a big part of that sales process as well. So
Yeah.
that's a great point.
Yeah, you're 100% on that. And, you mentioned something about reading between the lines. This is where that observation of body language comes in. And so when someone says, yeah, everything is fine, you know that they're probably just not feeling like it's a safe place for them to
Mhm.
open up because they don't want to tell you, right? There are certain things that people don't want to share. So that's on us then because we're not making it a safe place. So the more we have the conversation and we are paying close attention, giving them eye contact, right? Actively listening, which is nodding and being engaged versus and
Mhm.
clearly, just get through it so I can get back to my piece or I can me to it,
Right.
right? It's now you can then say after they share something, that's when you show the empathy. And
Mhm.
that's where, they start to see that you're different from others because they've already gone into any sales conversation pretty much thinking anyone that's selling is pretty much the same. We're all out. It's all about us. So when you can show you're different, I'm sure you do. I can tell is that we're like-minded here is that people look at you and say, yeah, she's different. Linda's different.
As far as the hard sell tactics, I don't know. I always do the eye roll because the reason why it's so important to listen and do less talking is because an individual who's on the other side, the individual that's buying, has very specific goals and objectives in mind. And if you're busy talking, they're not able to tell you or communicate those to you in an effective way that you're actually able to address. So, part of the whole process here, I think, to be successful is making sure, like we spoke about earlier, listen and try to uncover really in a deep way what those are and then kind of come back with some solutions that will actually work for that person. Because if they don't have the time to get out their thoughts, they'll be disinterested in you. So I think that that's a key component. And it's a very simple recipe
It is.
for success. So
Absolutely.
I've had people come to me and talk about getting into sales or getting into marketing. And I'm wondering, and a lot of times people are like, oh, I can't handle the no, or I don't know if I can handle the rejection, or they get their first no or their second no, and then the third no. And they're like, we're not cut out for this, probably what you had experienced.
Mm.
I mean, what do you say to those people that really are down and out and just have had enough and they're ready to just throw in the towel?
Well, yeah, you cannot succeed if you're going to be bothered by the word no. It's just a fact of life in business. If you have to grow your business, you have to ask for the business. And if the word no intimidates you, you have to get over it. And recognizing that this is the comparison I give. Do you like fine dining restaurants, Linda?
Mhm.
Me too. And I don't know if the server has ever asked you if you like to look at the wine list or have a specialty cocktail or ask about the dessert. And once in a while, you might say, no, I'll just have water, or I'm really stuffed. I don't need dessert, but thank you. Does the server walk away dejected, saying, oh my God, I can't face another person saying no, right? The
Right.
server just keeps serving and they smile. So the thing is about us in sales, if we just approach it with a servant mindset, when people are saying no, it's like, hey, they just don't want the dessert right now. Doesn't
Mhm.
mean they'll never want dessert. Doesn't mean they're bad people. Doesn't mean you're a failure. It's just they're not in the mood for what you're selling today. But next month or 3 months from now or a year from now, they might be. And so just respect that people do not necessarily buy on our time frame. They buy when they need something. And if we continue to show that we're there for them and serve them, who are they going to think of when they actually
Mhm.
need the product? Just like
Yeah.
in your business.
Exactly, and I think that's a great point because in the agency business that we're in, obviously, we're often up against other agencies, and it's quite competitive, so if we lose out, Some agencies are like, "Oh, yeah, well, we didn't want your business anyway." Well, I have a different philosophy around that because
Smart.
my my feeling is if you can maintain a positive connection with whoever you're working with and say, "Hey," sometimes you might be like a strong second or even a third. We find that, sometimes it doesn't work out with a selected agency. We're here to help you when things sort of fall by the wayside. We want you to know that we can pick up wherever they left off. You would be shocked at how many clients come back to us for that. So they just have to experience some of the pain on the other side. And then as long as they know, okay, these guys, I think I can work with them. They seem open minded and transparent. I'll give them a call. And then we start that relationship from there. So I think that's an important thing for salespeople to keep in mind is to rise above it all and just be positive and try to have a smile, like you said, be a good waiter or waitress and just have a smile on your face no matter what.
Yeah, and be understanding because we've all made decisions to go a different direction when we're
Yeah.
talking to a salesperson. A salesperson might be trying to sell a car to us. We say, I want a different direction. If we
Yes.
hear you total loser, do you know how much time I spent on you? Do you know what I already spent a commission check? I can't believe you did this to me. And they throw all that stuff back. We're just making sure that we'll not do business with that person again.
Exactly.
Right? So why do that? I mean, I've been around salespeople doing the same thing, and I shake my head. It's like, are you just like
Why?
cutting off your nose here? This is the perfect example because you don't want to wait a year for them to try out something, and maybe that doesn't work, and you can
Mhm.
sell something a year from now. Why would you do that? Yeah,
Exactly.
funny.
Exactly. No, it's so true. So sales training, I think, is great, and I've done that over the years and coaching. So can you tell me why it's so valuable, either even for somebody who's experienced and maybe somebody who's inexperienced? Explain to me the value behind that and how it sort of expedites that learning process versus falling down on your face year after year after year.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question. So if you think of like anyone who is a dentist, doctor, I mean, I'm hoping that any doctor or dentist I visit is staying up to date with what modern practices are. If you walked into a dentist's office and it looked like it was decorated for the 1970s with shag carpets, imagine they come over, no gloves and no mask, like they did when I was a kid. Right? It was 100 years ago, but no one wore gloves and no one wore masks. It's like if the dentist had bad, imagine if they're doing the same thing. And they said, well, I've been doing this a long time. I know how to do dentistry. Okay. You know how to sell probably, but are you current? Do you understand what permission based selling is? Do we understand what your personal branding is now? Do you understand how to provide value? I have a dog barking. I apologize for that.
It's
But
okay.
yeah, so providing value, massive value, even not just providing value. People say, well, I'm providing value of my product or service. No, are you providing massive value to your prospects so that they actually look at you as a resource for their business versus a salesperson? So if
Mhm.
you're not able to say yes to that question and say, last time I spoke to someone and asked me about what's going on in the world in their business was like never. So maybe we might want to improve on some of our business acumen and some skills. And there are some simple ways you can do that. And that's why
That's
I
awesome.
help people.
Oh, that's fantastic. I think that's great. It helps expedite the whole process, the whole learning curve. So before we go to our next question, I just want to take some time and thank the audience for listening in today. And you could help us grow our channel by liking, subscribing, and sharing B2B Brand 180 podcast with your colleagues. So thanks again. Okay, so Harry, I have a few more questions for you. I think one of the interesting points that I wanted to cover is there are a lot of nuances of different personalities, as we know, and relationships that successful salespeople actually kind of get and they understand and they know how to use those personalities and those little nuances to their advantage and bring in new business. What are some of those key points, and maybe how would new salesperson overcome some of those challenges?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Well, there's a number of tools out there that will help. I mean, the DISC personality profile is one. There's another one that's called Code Breaker Bank that basically it puts people into one of four main categories. Is the person a dominant personality, or are they in the code breakers? Does the person take action quickly? People like I'll give you an example. A person I was trying to sell me insurance one time is very analytical, and I'm an action person. So I was basically saying, what do I need? And the person gave me no less than five different options. And I'm looking at the options and I'm thinking, why are you making this so complicated? And we're off like $20 a month. I mean, I don't care if it's 20 or if it's 18 or if it's 22. That doesn't matter to an action person. The action people are the people that are making decisions quickly, that are saying, cut to the chase, just tell me what I need. Those are indicators that they don't want to be bogged down with 73 choices about
Right.
what are the different programs you offer. And then there are people that are very analytical, and they'll, in a conversation, you'll ask, for instance, when you buy a new car, or look at, a new washer and dryer, what goes into your process? Are you a person that compares a lot of different things, really shops through all the details, or can you walk into a Lowe's and just say, I want the white one? And that will give you an idea if they are going to be very analytical, which means you better continue to provide a lot of information with those people and be very patient, because they're going to analyze, versus the people that are quick decision makers. And then there's a lot of in betweens, but those two will get you going, right? If you can just say quick decision maker, analytical, you're going to treat them differently. That will get you started.
That's actually a good point, because I think salespeople might get a little impatient with the analytical
Oh,
people.
absolutely.
And if they,
For
and if
sure.
and if they don't identify that like immediately, then it's like, okay, then that could just end the sale and the potential of a sale.
Right.
So that's a good point that you brought up, is that if you notice that they're analytical, put on the brakes a little bit, provide the detail and the research and the data that they need, so they feel like they're making a decision based on information, versus somebody that's going to make a quick decision based on maybe gut or, a
Exactly.
referral. So
Yeah.
that's great.
Right. Yeah.
Um, it's interesting as from a salesperson's perspective, because I think, a lot of people want to be real during the selling process. They want to be authentic. They want to care about their, customer. But on the other hand, they've got corporate bearing down on them for quotas and sales numbers to meet last quarter's numbers. So how do they find that balance between meeting those targets and actually being a genuine human and serving their customers properly?
Oh my goodness. It sounds like you have experience in that one, Linda. Did you come from that background? It's such a great question.
Yes. The answer would be yes.
All right. Well, yeah. So I worked for a publicly held company, and I had the same philosophy back then. Do we need to close business every month? Yes. Do we have to forecast for the quarter? Yes. But you don't sacrifice the relationship with the customer in order to get business. Never. So you just have to bite the bullet and say, you know what, my forecast is off. They decided to wait. And you just have to do what you have to do, because you cannot force someone. Last time I checked, you cannot go to someone's office, take a pen, or give them a DocuSign and say, sign this today because my quarter depends on your business. They don't
Right.
care. They care about them. And if we misread it, I mean, we misread it. But I would do over the years, and of course, I would ask, like, as a leader of a sales team, I would say, oh my goodness, I would ask the sales team, who's got a deal that's stuck, and can I make a call? And I would take the pressure off the rep, and I would just ask a question: does this look pretty good for you? And they say, yeah. And I say, what's your time frame for taking delivery? And they say, well, in a couple of weeks. I say, great. We're absolutely here for you in a couple of weeks. And I've got a quick question for you. And then I would ask, is there any way, if we could do a little sweetener, that you'd be able to take delivery before the end of the month?
Mhm.
And they'd say, well, it depends on the sweetener, something along
Right.
those lines. Right.
Right.
And it would be, give away something to make them feel good, not cut your
Yeah.
price in half, but make them feel good to help you drive your revenue.
Yeah.
What's your thought on that? Does that sound fair?
I think that's a good tip. I think that's great. If you were to fast forward a little bit, how do you see the sales industry changing? I mean, with AI and taking advantage of that through different types of platforms and email marketing and LinkedIn, and it removes that personal touch that we all like. How are you seeing that in the future?
Oh, I totally believe that sales is going to be around as long as there's people. If we look at selling as part of persuading, as part of serving, even if this like ChatGPT is awesome. I use ChatGPT for love it. However, if I put out the best content or someone else puts out the best content, I have to read it. And if
Right.
I don't read it, it doesn't, I miss it's sort of like having the billboard in the desert. No one's seeing it. So having somebody in sales, getting the message out, communicating, networking, calling on a specific market. For instance, marketing might be, well, I'm going to call on HVAC people, or I'm going to call on people who live in nice homes, or my business, or whoever your avatar is. When I say call on,
Hmm.
there has to be some connection to get you in front of those people because not everyone has the desire to read or to
Right.
listen or to watch video, but it's like you can pull in relatively inexpensively if you do sales the right way, is just by networking and having conversations with people and saying, so Linda, what's your focus on your business this year?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
you start sharing. It's like, well, I'm really looking to cross sell or get more business out of my current clients. And then you're building the trust and relationship. And then say, I've got a tool after a while, not right off the bat, but after there's a lengthy conversation, I can share a couple of thoughts if you're interested in exploring this a little
Yeah.
bit further, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. Well, the copy may be out there, could be on your website, could be on
Right.
Facebook, but if I don't see it, that's the real simple thing. It's like networking.
Exactly.
I don't think it's going to go away. So maybe if we all become robots someday, but I don't think that's anytime soon.
I don't know, maybe. So let me ask one last final question. What
Sure.
would you what would you say the one tip is you can provide our sales listeners today that will help them in the long run? Like the biggest tip, maybe something that you learned. I know we already we did talk about rejection. We
Mhm.
talked about listening. We talked about different types of personalities. Is there something else that you think you could share with our audience that would be a great takeaway?
Yeah, there's one that comes to mind. I don't know why, but it's you have business inside of your funnel, in your pipeline, in your group of people that maybe you've sent proposals to in the past and they didn't do anything. There is business there. And many don't follow up with those people because they said no or what they weren't ready. And so they moved on. Those people will eventually buy from somebody. And so I call it stir the pot, get in touch with them, find them on LinkedIn, wherever, and just say, it's been a while since you and I spoke. I'd love to catch up to hear what you've got going on these days and see if I can be a resource for you and be a
That
resource, right?
yeah, that's
Don't,
great tip.
yeah. Don't think
That's a
about the sale.
I guess what I was thinking is if you think about the salesperson and that hunter mentality, they're just like, okay, they didn't close next. They didn't
Right.
close next. They didn't close next. So really what you're saying is just stop for a minute and go back to that list of nexts, people that said no, and try to get them going again because maybe they, like we said earlier, maybe they're not happy. Maybe they have another project. You just never know.
And
So
maybe,
that's
yeah,
be
maybe they
mindful.
didn't make a decision. Maybe we
Correct.
just gave up because they said they were going to go a different direction. But shockingly, people get busy and don't make the decision. They think they do, and then they don't. And then they're still sitting out there. And then you'll find out that they never did anything. Again, don't jump down their throat like, this is a great opportunity. Think about how you can serve them. What is it that they need and provide some value, whether it be a network connection, maybe it's a comment on a LinkedIn post, maybe it's an article about the future of AI, something that is valuable. And
Mhm.
when you do that and stir the pot without looking like you're selling something, people will connect the dots. They know what you do. They will remember. You don't have to say, well, I don't know if you remember me, but 6 months ago, you turned me down. You don't want to go to there, right? They remember and just provide value and totally surprise them and get that conversation and be genuine and treat them like they're brand new. And you'll be shocked at some of the business that starts to get developed.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's fantastic. All right. Well, thank you very much, Harry. And thank you to the audience today for listening in today. And thanks for all your sales insights. So, Harry, I would love for you to share with the audience how they can get in touch with you, how they can find your book, maybe how they can learn about your services.
Yeah, absolutely. If they want to find me, I'm real easy to find on LinkedIn. If you just look up Selling with Dignity, I'm pretty much the only one there with that. And if you go to sellingwithdignity.com, you can get a free download of a book preview. And then, we'll go from there. We'll have a conversation if you want, and no pressure, no obligation. See if I can help solve a problem.
Fantastic, Harry. Well,
Been a blast.
Yeah, thanks for joining me today. It was great to have you. And I'm always interested in sales strategies and insights. I just think it's such an interesting, career. And I even say it to my kids, I'm like, okay, if you want to succeed in life, you need to go into sales and just get rejected, because once you get through that, you can pretty much get through anything.
It is. It's a skin thickener for sure.
Yeah, I guess after that. So anyway, let me take a moment and thanks again for tuning in to B2B Brand 180. And we hope you found the insights and strategies shared today valuable for your business. Again, I'm Linda Fanaras, host of B2B Brand 180. And if you'd like to find us, just visit us at mill.agency, or feel free to email me directly at lfanaras, which is FANARAS @mill.agency, or simply just connect with me on LinkedIn and just search for my name. So just to help our channel grow and educate more B2B leaders on brand strategy and sales, feel free to click like, share, or subscribe. And thanks again for listening. Until next time, happy sales and marketing.